All right, this is Upside Down in the Middle of Nowhere, chapter 50, 51, and 52. For my class, this section, chapter 50 is section 5, 51 and 52 are section 6. So I'll post the videos in both assignments. Chapter 50. I shot a happy zap through me until I seen the look on Mama's face, and my mouth went dry. She hasn't seen Tay Tay since Monday. Mama all but whispered it was Thursday. He's been he's been in two other shelters and he can't find her. I didn't want to hear no more. Not Tay Tay, not my best friend. I'm so sorry, Armani. Mama patted the top of her leg. Come on here, sweetheart. And when I went to her, she pulled me onto her lap, and my head went straight to her shoulder and found that cradle spot made for holding heads in a place that felt safe. And Mama held her arm out to my sister, and Celie came over, sat on the floor, and rested her head on Mama's knee. She stroked Celie's head, and my sister's hand found mine, and I took it and held her tight, and I closed my eyes and breathed my Mama in, and I was wishing somehow we could stay like that forever. Mama, I said, calm and quiet, still wrapped in her arms, did Mima die because I snuck her them apple fritters? No, darling. Mima died because it was her time, and there isn't no one or anything to blame. There's no one to blame, Celie whispered. Mama took a long, slow breath, and it would make your Mima so sad if she thought you were blaming yourself, Armani, so please understand that it wasn't your fault. Can you do that for me? And I lazy shrugged. I owe you girls an apology, especially you, Armani. I lifted my head, and my Mama gently pushed my head back onto her shoulder, and I shouldn't have left you like that at the Superdome. I was so scared and confused, and I didn't realize. It's okay, Mama, I said. You had to get back to help for Colleen. We understand. I'm the only one who's sorry. I should have listened to you and stayed put, like you said. Oh, sweetheart, you did exactly the right thing. You've taken such good care of my babies, and you're an amazing young lady. Mama pulled in a long breath, and your daddy's going to be so proud of you and proud of both of you. Celie sniffed, and her thumb rubbed the back of my hand like I used to rub Mima's, and Mama shifted in the chair when I got up and stared at me a good long while and into my eyes, studying my face. You've grown so much. Mama reached behind her neck with both of her hands, and she took off the compass locket and held it out in front of her, and then she reached up under my hair and fastened it back around my neck, the same way Mima had done up in that awful attic. Now, Mama said, I need you to do one more thing for me, and I blinked, never taking my eyes off hers. Anything, Mama. I want you to go with Miss Priscilla tomorrow, and the air got sucked right out of me. But Mama said, she took a hold of my chin and leaned in a little closer. I don't know what you'll find when you get there in Armani. Yes, Mama. I want you to get back here tomorrow night. That's right, Celie said, sounding like an echo. Tomorrow night. And before I had a chance to say another word, I heard the sounds of Miss Priscilla and her ducklings coming down the canvas hallway. Knock, knock, Miss Priscilla said in a voice of hers. Is it all right for us to come in? And she poked her poofy head in, and as soon as Mama said yes, and the rest of her and the kids came spilling back into our room, Mr. High Pockets followed behind, toting a pile of paper pillows and scratchy blankets. I seen the plastic white bag in Matthew's hand and knew right away what it was. Martha snatched the bag out of his hand and skipped over to me, and she held the bag out for me to take. Here, Armani, we found your bag. Thanks, I mumbled. What's that? Mama asked. What? The bag you're holding. And I looked out of the bag like I was surprised to see hanging off a hand that belonged to me. Oh, this is nothing. Celie's mouth open, and I shot her a look. She shut her mouth quick. It didn't matter no how, because my sister's new twin, named Martha, said all happy, It's your new shoes, Armani, the ones that Miss Priscilla got you? Oh, dear, Miss Priscilla said. And I forced a smile to my mouth, and it almost hurt. And Martha's right, Mama. It's just some shoes she gave to me, that's all. Can I see the bag? Mama asked with no one in her voice, and she looked inside and she closed the bag and stood up. Miss Priscilla, I wonder if I can get you to sit with the other children for a few minutes longer. Well, you can, Miss Catherine. Me and Mr. High Pockets here can go hold down the fort, can't we, hon? And she winked at the man and he gave her a thumbs up. Y'all take as much time as you need. I walked with Mama, and she had her arm around my shoulder, and the white bag swayed back and forth like a floating plastic wall between us, and we walked. Can you show me where you've been sleeping? And I led the way to our corner. The Malmas waved, and I waved back, and Mama never asked who they were, and I stopped in front of our cots. Now sit down, Armani. Without saying one single word, Mama got down on her knees in front of me and took my right foot in her hands, and as slow as molasses, my Mama pulled the rubber foot off my boot, and a tear made its way down my cheek. Mama. Shh, is all she said. And she, real careful, set the boot on the floor next to her, and she took the foot and rubbed it between her warm, sweet hands, and she brought up my foot to her mouth, and she kissed the top of it. She did the same thing with my left foot, and when she pulled the new white sneakers with the sky blue stripes out of the bag, a shiver ran up my spine. And one by one, Mama slipped the new shoes onto me. My feet were singing thank you, but my heart was as heavy as a stump. Mama took Mima's boots and placed them real gentle down inside the plastic bag, and when she finally looked up at me, her cheeks were wet and her eyes let me know her heart was feeling heavy too when she stood up. My hand slid into hers and she helped me to my feet, and I felt like I was floating on air, and she handed me the bag and we walked way back over to the clinic. Now, ain't that nice? Mima whispered in my ear. All right. This is chapter 51, so this is the beginning of section 6. I sat on the edge of one of the rollaway beds that a man had brought in earlier, and I kept touching Mima's compass locket while I watched Celie braid Martha's long hair, and the two of them nonstop whisper grabbing. The twins and Little John were sound asleep. Lukey had gone into the hall with Mama and Priscilla, and the boy had been hanging on Miss Priscilla's hand all afternoon. Out of the corner of my eye, I seen Matthew staring in my direction. I looked over at him, and our eyes locked, and he came over and sat down beside me. Armani, I want to go with you tomorrow. It was way past lights out, and I noticed that the nighttime lights in the clinic didn't have the same nightmare gray color like in the rest of the shelter, and the buzz was still there, though, and I figured I'd always have had that buzz stuck in my head. Probably even when I was 20 or 30 years old, I'd be still hearing that buzz. I seen the shadow of Mama sleeping in her rocking chair holding Colleen, and I couldn't take my eyes off her, and I told her I took a hold of the locket and kissed it, and please help me find my way home tomorrow. I tried to force my eyes shut so I could get some sleep, but they kept popping open, and my insides were jumpy, and my nerves were working me crazy. And in the morning, I was going home to try and find Daddy and Georgie, and I'd never been so scared in my whole life. And I rolled onto my side, and that's when I seen it. Kayla had her hand poked out through the metal bars of her crib, and I couldn't see her face too good, but I could see her little fingers, and somehow that baby girl was giving me a perfect I love you sign like she'd been doing it her whole life. And I smiled in the darkness, and I gave her a sign back, and her hand disappeared into the crib. Chapter 52. This is Friday, September 2nd, 2005 at 4:23 in the morning. For days, I've been wishing for just a little time for myself, away from the kids and the toilets and the noise in the shelter. But when the transport people came to take Mama and the twins and Celia to the hospital, I could barely stand the thought of being away from all of them. And Mama surprised me when she didn't cry. Miss Priscilla promised me she'd do everything in her power to get Mama's precious cargo back before lights out. Wait, Celia all but hollered directly into my ear after she squeezed the life out of me when she said her goodbyes, and she reached into her book sack and pulled out Georgie's glasses. Mama's hand flew up to her mouth, and a tiny gasp squeezed past her lips. Here, Celie handed the glasses to me. Georgie's going to need these, and she smiled, and her wet eyes twinkled. He's going to be so happy to have them back, and to tell Daddy I can't wait to see him. And she gave me one last hug and held up the plastic bag. Don't worry about me, Ma's boots. I'll keep them safe for you. And she looked at me in a way I've only seen a mama or daddy look at a child. And you're the best sister ever, Armani. I was stood there holding my brother's glasses and watched my family leave, not feeling 1 ounce of brave in my whole body. I've been sitting up in Miss Priscilla's SUV by myself, fiddling with Georgie's glasses on my lap, waiting for Matthew to get back from the bathroom and for Miss Priscilla to come with her friend, the man who'd lost his family. It was strange being outside, even if it was sitting in a big old truck, and it was mostly dark, and there were buildings all around like on Canal Street, and if I tipped my head and looked up between the black outlines of the two of them buildings, I could see the moon working its way across the sky. I'd never been so anxious to see what the sun was going to look like and what color blue the sky might be. Hey! I jumped out and almost bumped my head when the Matthew opened the truck door and hopped in the back seat of mine. Hey, I said, looking out the window, and I found the moon again, and I staring at it. I wondered if the people in heaven could see the moon. And Matthew leaned across the seat and shoulder bumped me. You all right? And I shrugged. Yeah, I guess. And I turned to look at him, and it was weird the way sitting up in that dark SUV early in the morning like that made our skin look like the same nighttime blue color. Can I ask you something, Matthew? Sure. Are you scared? I mean, about going back there? Well, more than you know, I honestly don't think I'd ever go back, especially since New Orleans had nothing left for me anyhow. Martha and the boys is all I got, and I'm grateful for your mama for taking care of them. Matthew's words about New Orleans and not having nothing left stirred up that unsettling feeling in me again, and I was fixing to find my moon when a door opened, allowing Miss Priscilla and her smells to fill the empty driver's seat. So how do you like my Tahoe? I've had it going on a year now, and y'all's the first ones to sit in the back seat, and I imagine that. And she looked up in the rearview mirror and smiled at us, and all I could see was her bright cherry red lips and part of her chin. Y'all buckle up now. She went to fluffing up her already big hair. Yes, ma'am, me and Matthew said at the same time, and the passenger door opened and a man got in, and I blinked and blinked trying to get rid of the spots left behind by the bright overhead light, and I could tell the man he was saying hey to Miss Priscilla by the way the two of them faced each other. Miss Priscilla let out one of her famous loud laughs and pushed the man's shoulder, and she pulled down her sun visor and flipped open the lit up mirror hidden there, and Mamma would have loved that mirror. Well, we best be going, Miss Priscilla said through her smacks, and she snapped her visor mirror shut and started the truck. Where are my manners? Miss Priscilla said, half half turned in her seat so she could look back at us. Yo, this is my friend Elvin. I told you all about Elvin. I'd like you to meet. Oh God, they couldn't be. Could it? And the name flew out of my mouth. Uncle Elvin? I felt half sick to my stomach, and Miss Priscilla flipped down her visor, and her painted mouth was just a smiling in that dinky mirror. Oh, you know each other? Uncle Alvin turned around and looked at me like I was seeing a ghost in the voodoo queen Marie Laveau sitting in the back seat of the SUV Tahoe truck. Armani Curtis? You lost her? How could you? You're so stupid, I cried, in the words, Armani, don't. And Matthew turned my face so I was looking at him and not my ugly uncle, and I fell into Matthew's chest and buried my face there. Uncle Alvin let out a sob. Oh, my, Miss Priscilla said in a worried voice. My uncle opened up his door and got out, and he glanced back at me as he walked slowly off. And a zap of angry electricity ran up my back, and he stopped walking and went to hanging his head. Honey bee, we need to talk. You don't understand. And I took a gulp of air conditioner air. He's mean to Tay Tay. Who's Tay Tay? Matthew asked. My cousin, my best friend. I stifled a cry. His daughter? I pointed out the window. His daughter he lost? Oh, Matthew said. Without taking the time to first think, I got out of the truck and grabbed a hold of Mima's locket and walked slowly around the backside of the SUV, and I stopped when the man I'd been holding hate for looked up, and we stared at each other. I didn't realize till right then that I've never actually looked at Tay-Tay's dad in the face before, and the man standing in front of me didn't look mean at all. He looked really sad. I let her down when she needed me the most, and her eyes dropped away from me, and I was passed out drunk on the old she-devil, and that old she-devil Katrina put the nines underwater, and I woke up floating on the sofa, and my baby girl was gone, and he was crying, and so was I. I pray every night that God's looking after her, and all the mad left me right then. Uncle Elvin. I was calling him by his name for the first time that I can remember. We're going to find her. I know we will. And a sob came from him, and he slumped so far forward that he thought he was going to tip, and his head covered in engraved black fuzz went to bobbing up and down, and I slowly wrapped my arms around his middle. And at first he just stood there crying and letting me do all the hugging, but then he had his arms around me too, and the weight of his head laid up on mine. I'm sorry, my uncle whispered. Me too, I said. Do you think my baby will ever forgive me? And he pulled back and looked at me, and I wiped my eyes on my shirt sleeve. Tay-Tay's the nicest person I know. She loves you. She told me so. She said that? Yes, sir, she did. And he sniffed and nodded, standing by the tiny bit straighter. When Miss Priscilla cleared her throat, we looked at her and seen standing there dabbing her face with the tissue. When y'all are ready, we should get a move on, she said, all right. And before I opened my door, and he opened his, Uncle Alvin said, thank you, Armani, and you're good people. I know your daddy's proud of you. And I settled in my seat more tired and wore out than I ever looked out my I settled in my seat more tired and wore out than ever, and I looked out my window and the moon was gone and I couldn't find it anywhere. And that's the end of 52.